What's the worst thing that ever happened to you that turned out to be a blessing in disguise? When my wife lost our baby for the third time, then came to me suggesting a divorce, I thought my life was over. We'd been trying for 4 years, and this last miscarriage at 7 months just broke us both. We enrolled into couples therapy immediately, and our couples therapist, Dr. James, seemed to really understand her pain at first. He was always touching her shoulder and telling her how strong she was while making these subtle digs at me. Men often cope by avoiding emotions, he'd say, or, have you considered how your work focus affected her grief? I started noticing how she'd light up when talking about their solo sessions and how he'd text her about emergency appointments. I found them in his car after one of those emergency sessions. She didn't even try to explain. The divorce was final within 3 months, and I moved into this crappy studio apartment downtown. He lost his license, but that didn't fix anything. I spent most nights drinking and staring at the bridge visible from my window, thinking about how easy it would be to just stop hurting. One night around 2 a.m., I went to the grocery store for more beer when I heard this kid having an absolute meltdown in aisle 3. This exhausted young mom was trying to pick up scattered groceries while her toddler screamed and other shoppers gave her those judgmental looks. Without thinking, I knelt down and made this ridiculous face at the kid. He stopped crying immediately and actually laughed. The mom looked ready to cry herself as she thanked me over and over. She mentioned she hadn't slept in days, and when I said, I remember those days, she assumed I was a father. I almost corrected her, but didn't. I think she thought I was cute or something, because she asked me if I had kids on my own. And when I told her no and I lived alone, she invited me for coffee the next morning to thank me properly. And honestly, I had nothing else to do, so I went. Her name was Lynn, and her 3-year-old was Ryan. At the diner, she told me her husband had died 3 years ago, 12 days after their little one was born. They had just moved here for his job not long ago, and she's been too heartbroken ever since to get out there and meet anyone. That's when I told her about my past, about my ex-wife, and about the miscarriages. She didn't judge or offer empty platitudes. She just listened. What started as weekly coffee became this daily routine. I'd help with grocery runs and doctor appointments while Ryan would show me his drawings. It wasn't romantic since we were both too broken for that, but Ryan started calling me Mr. Dan, and neighbors assumed I was his grandfather. Neither of us corrected them. I taught Ryan to tie his shoes and count to 20. Lynn started smiling again when she watched us practice catching a ball in the parking lot. The day Ryan successfully rode his bike without training wheels, he shouted, "Look, Mama!" And she cried for the first time in months, but they were happy tears. Everything changed the night Ryan asked about his dad. Lynn broke down and told me the truth. Her husband had ended his life. She found him in their garage with a note saying he couldn't handle the pressure. She'd been carrying this guilt that she should have seen the signs or done something different. I held her while she sobbed, and Ryan wrapped his little arms around both of us saying, "Don't be sad, Mama." That's when I told them about the night I almost jumped off the bridge near my apartment. What stopped me was this random stranger who smiled at me while walking their dog. Just that simple human connection was enough to make me turn around. "You saved us too," Lynn said, and we talked about how family isn't always about blood. Ryan drew a picture the next day of 3 people holding hands with my family, written in green crayon across the top. At Ryan's kindergarten graduation, when the teacher asked kids to introduce their families, Ryan pointed at us and said, "That's my mama and my grandpa Dan." I froze, waiting for Lynn to correct him, but she just smiled through her tears. Later, Ryan asked if Grandpa Dan would stay forever, and Lynn and I both nodded. It's been 7 years since then, and yes, me and Lynn are married.